Welcome everyone to this PD and your PJ session. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us to learn a little bit more about how you can use Seesaw in your classroom. If you are joining us for the first time, just a couple notes before we begin. You should hear us talking now, and only panelists will actually be able to talk. So if you have something to say or questions, you will type them into the question box. We are recording this session, and we will email the recording to you after the session is over, and we will also share the slides. So you are going to see some amazing ideas that both of our panelists are sharing with you today. So just note that you'll get a follow-up email because you have registered, and if you are watching the recording, we welcome you as well. We are going to have hopefully a chunk of time at the end for our panelists to take your questions. So keep that in mind as we're moving through this presentation today. So a little bit about me, just so you know who I am. You're going to hear my voice a little bit. I'm Angela. I have taught kindergarten for 15 years, and now I'm working full-time for Seesaw to support teacher success. So you can find me on Twitter, and I'm really excited today because we have two phenomenal elementary art teachers with us here today. The first is Hahn. Nick is a K-5 art teacher from Minnesota. She loves attending K-12 art chat on Thursdays. She is the author of Mini Matisse blogspot.com, and those are the ways that you can connect with her there. And I have to say, Nick is with me here in Minnesota, so we've met each other face to face, and I have been inspired by her work as well and integrated those ideas into my kindergarten class last year. So if you are not, an art teacher, I feel like all of us can be art teachers. So soak in these ideas and spread them as best you can. And then we have the fabulous Mary Mullins. Mary is a 2nd through 5th grade art teacher. She works with over 600 students in Georgia. So she is in the Cobb County School District. She is the lead art teacher. There are 68 elementary art teachers in total in her district. So I think that just goes to her expertise and knowledge as being, that lead art teacher with so many amazing educators that she works with. She has trained teachers in her district and state in Seesaw. So we are thrilled that both of them are here today joining us. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pass over our presentation to Nick, and she is going to drive our slides here for a little bit as they share their awesome ideas for getting started with Seesaw in your art classroom. Nick, looking good. I'm seeing you getting your slides up and ready.
Yep.
Just go into present mode and we should be all set.
Sure. We're there, but I'm going to go back because we're on the wrong side.
That's okay.
All right, here we are. As you guys know, Art Youth Month is March. So I thought that we'd start with kind of an introduction. Our theme for Art Youth Month is United Through Art. And I just wanted to know what things you are doing in your school to celebrate this month, because it is a time to really celebrate the visual arts and what you are doing in your classrooms. So share that in the chat. I'd love to hear that as we're moving on, or you can also tweet that to me. I'd love to see. So, as we talked, I am a K-5 art teacher currently, and I'm working for ISD 728 in Elk River, Minnesota. Specifically, Rogers is where I work. I have been working for several years, and I've worked with kindergarten all the way up through adult learners. Seesaw has been one of my favorite tools that I have implemented into my classroom. And these are some of the reasons why. I love flipping my newsletter. So the information that I'm sending home, I'm flipping it and sending it on Seesaw. We'll talk about all of these in just a moment. Communicating and advocating with families. So making sure that they know what's happening in your classroom. And then, of course, that is going to advocate for your program. Quick pics, videos, just kind of letting them know the happenings of your class. Recording stations is what I have created to make sure that the students are able to record. And student teaching parents. So we're going to talk about how the students are able to create their own lessons for their parents. And then assessments, of course, with Seesaw as well. Okay, I just want to check to make sure that everybody can hear that. Can you hear what I'm saying, Angela?
Oh yeah, you're
Okay.
sounding good.
Here, all right, good. Then we can move on. All right, so here we have a flipped lesson. A lot of times I am recording myself or recording my lesson ahead of time, and I'm just using an iPad for that. And I will record either my face or my hands when I'm demonstrating or talking about what's happening in my classroom. So at the beginning of the school year, you guys might be familiar with this. I do a Art to Remember newsletter, or I'm sorry, Art to Remember program, and that's a fundraiser for families to purchase artwork of their students and place it on a mug or a t-shirt or something like that. So instead of sending out a newsletter this year, what I did was recorded myself, put it on YouTube, and then linked that to all of my parents via Seesaw. It was a great way to communicate what was going on in my classroom and what the upcoming expectations of Art to Remember were. All of these slides, I just want to mention all of these slides have some links to them. So you'll be able to visit the links and see more information on each of these. Another way that I use Seesaw is to communicate with parents. So, for example, this amazing project was taking our primary colors and then mixing them together to make our secondary colors or secondary-ish colors. So, what I did was I had Play-Doh for each one of my classes, and I decided that I would make a Google form, or actually it was a Google Doc, and put the requests of the Play-Doh, how many reds and how many blues and how many yellows I needed. Um, and then I shared that Google Doc on Seesaw within, I'd say, an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I had parents signed up for every single batch that I needed for the following week. It was slick as can be. It was wonderful. So it's a great way to communicate with parents as far as the needs of your classroom goes. This was just so immediate for parents and so immediate for me. I love taking pictures of what's happening in the classroom. This is probably the most simple way for me if I am running out of time in the class period or I just want to send something really quick. I'll do one of two things. So I'll take my iPad and I'll just scan the room. I am currently wearing a headphone with a microphone, and that's what I plug into my iPad. Class can be happening, voices can be talking, and if I have this headset on with the microphone right by my mouth, that allows my voice to be heard over the classroom noise. So I'll take a scan of the classroom and I'll say, for example, we are learning about patterns today in art class, and all of our students are working on this, blah, 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 blah. And then I can send that out immediately. So it's just a quick like view into the classroom. Another way that I'll do that is just taking pictures of the students that and their artwork. So in this case, we have winter self-portraits. And of course, I needed their sweet little faces in with their artwork because that is just adorable. Who wouldn't want to get that in the middle of the day? Your sweet kid with their sweet artwork showing up on their phone. So awesome. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that my students had the capability of recording or presenting on their own using Seesaw. I have this really, really great display case right outside my classroom. And I thought this is going to be the most wonderful thing. When I moved in here, I thought this is going to be wonderful. I'm going to have this filled all the time. Well, it had glass in it and it was hard to turn things around in it. And so what I did was I removed the glass from the display case. So there was glass doors. I took those out and I placed a glass shelf and some hints on where to place your iPad when you're recording. Um, this allows students to place their paper right underneath, take their picture or take their recording, and have a very nice image that they're sending home. I also have some great steps of how to use Seesaw that I purchased from TPT. and I have that hanging above. So it's kind of a welcome station for Seesaw. Students can go out there and post their artwork at will or when they are requested or required to. So when I want more students to have this capabilities, what I'll do is take that glass that I took from my display case, shh, don't tell anyone, and I place it across two crates like what you see here. Now, the glass acts as the carrier for the iPad, and down below is going to be the area where the students are going to be creating or discussing their artwork. So in this case, what I tried, and it was successful, I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to do a little bit more of this, but I asked my students to teach their parents what they have just learned. So you see some students are drawing hearts, and so they put it on record mode, have the headset on, and they said, Mom, Dad, I'm going to show you how to make a heart, and they drew their hearts step by step the way that I showed them. Sometimes I had other students that wanted to cut their hearts, so they showed their parents how to cut. Now, this is first grade here, and I'd say about 25% of them were talking without their hands underneath. They just weren't getting that connected. But majority of them had it right underneath, were able to explain to their parents what happened. And again, how amazing to have your student teaching you what they had learned in that day. And we all know that teaching is the best way to learn, right? So doing this, using the Seesaw method is a great way to record and translate the happenings and what they are learning in class. So overall, this is kind of, it just kind of happened in a Twitter chat recently. Someone asked, how do you do formative assessment? And I thought of Seesaw right away. I just think it is a way to communicate, advocate, and celebrate what's going on in your classroom. And I posted about it because what I have been recently doing is asking students to record maybe their reflection on art. So we might create a piece of artwork and then create a script, maybe with some prompts, and then they take an image of their artwork, they record their script into that cool little microphone that I have, and share that with their parents. Now, this can be, of course, avocation of your classroom and celebration of what they have accomplished, but we can use it as assessment as well. So what I can do is go back and take a look at what the students have talked about in their reflection, and I can understand what their level of thinking was. That allows me to do formative or maybe even summative assessment on their artwork. Again, I have amazing links to everything. So that brings you right back to either a YouTube video or my maybe my blog posts about what we have talked about here in this presentation. And I think we're on to Mary. So I'm going to continue moving the slides forward. But Mary, it's up to you.
Hi, so yes, I'm Mary, and I love Seesaw. And Nick, your slides look amazing. I love your lessons. So right here, we're looking at my Seesaw Art Docking Station. So I just have a iPad stand, and when students are done, they can go right on over to the iPad stand and lay their art under it, take a photograph, tag their name, and it goes right to their journal or their digital portfolio. But today we didn't use the docking station. Today we were doing, we've been drawing a picture of the giraffe and watching the live feed from New York of April the giraffe. And so today, and I don't have a photograph up here to show you, but when the students were done drawing their giraffe, they would stand in front of my projector where April, the live feed is on, and they would hold their picture and get a selfie with April and their picture that they created. And the parents were so excited when they were getting their messages today. So sometimes we do it through the docking station and actually keep that logged in as a teacher so they don't have to scan a code. It's already out before they start coming over. I make sure it's signed into the correct class, and they can just go right on over and take their picture and then move on to their next project. But like today, when they were doing selfies, I was letting other students be photographers. And so on with that type thing, I have them log in themselves as a student using the QR codes. And up here I have a poster that gives the instructions of what do you do when you walk up, whether a picture shows up well or not, and whatnot. And that is available. I can send that out to Angela, and she can, if anybody would like a copy of it, that's totally fine with me.
Maybe tweet it out too, Mary. That would be great. Maybe tweet it out after the webinar. That would be awesome if you.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great thinking. Great thinking. Okay, so we can move on to the next slide. So I teach about 600 students every 4 days, and with Seesaw, what I ended up doing is some days I teach 2 of one grade level or 3 of one grade level. So I'll say my Monday classes for 3rd grade are all use the same QR code. So they're all labeled as the same class. And inside that class, you'll see, it's blurred out, but the photograph we're looking at with the book, the art iPad book, that's a particular class. And if you see, I think that's Ms. Barber's. I can't even read it. But when they log into their Seesaw, they have to look for their initial of their teacher first, and then they find their name. That way it's a little bit easier for them to find them, because some of the classes that I have 3 classes loaded as one Seesaw group, it's easier for them to find their name alphabetically if they first find their teacher's initial and then they find their name so they can log in. But I have 2 ways. The QR code stays in this art iPad book so they can flip to their class and just scan the code. Or I made this slider thing, that's what's on the left, and the little QR code viewfinder is, when I laminated, I cut a square out, and then when I laminated it, made like a plastic viewfinder, and it literally slides up and down to whatever day of the week it is. And then they can scan their code, just so I can have 2 codes in the room for each class. It's easier if it gets backed up or everybody's wanting to scan it at the same time. Does that make sense, Angela?
I loved it. I saw that picture and I was like, this is brilliant. I loved it. Yeah.
Getting ahead of myself or explaining correctly.
Yeah, I get it. Totally, totally great. If people have questions, you can type them in. But basically, I love the idea that you're moving that basically viewfinder down to get to the right QR code for the class you have at that time. That's one of the questions I get asked a lot, is as a specialist, how do I set up my Seesaw class? What should I do? And I know Mary is using the free version of Seesaw, so she has multiple classes combined in there because she's limited in how many classes she can actually create. And I know Nick has a little bit different setup, so maybe when we get to questions at the end, we can elaborate on that a little bit as well.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
I'm not sure if I have another slide or not. I can't see them. So, okay. So last year, yeah, we drew robots on paper, just a traditional way, and we photographed them, and then we put them in Chatterpix. And our robots, we also had to write a story about our robots. If our robots could talk, what would they say? And then we recorded our voice speaking like a robot, and they let our robot talk. And the parents would never have seen it if we had not Seesaw, because it would be in the iPads at school. They would only see the paper robot that comes home. What I really love now is Seesaw allows you to print a QR code from your, so this year I could print each robot's individual QR code that leads to the video. So I made a display in the hallway up in the front of the school, so people could just use the QR reader and see the robots talk, which I thought that was pretty neat. I love how y'all added that feature. And then I did like a flipped classroom where I did a tutorial from YouTube, and I did a tree drawing, which I like. I also, Nick had mentioned how she uses Art to Remember. I also use something similar, but I use Square One art, and it's the same type idea where you have your art printed on, various things and purchased. And yes, Seesaw is the best way to communicate with. You get immediate communication with families, and I love that. I love that, and I think that's part of why um, our fundraiser is so successful. Is it immediately gets they get a text message or a text alert when something comes out. Um, so I'm trying to think of anything else.
That's awesome. Let's go to the next slide. I think we're ready for questions, which I'm so excited about. So those of you that are listening here live, go ahead and type your questions in, things you want to know from these amazing art teachers. They are happy to answer your questions. And maybe Nick, right now, since they're typing in questions, which I hope they do, will you just explain your class setup? Because Mary kind of described hers a little bit in the sense that she has classes combined into one class. Because she's using the free version of Seesaw. How do you have your classes created in Seesaw, Nick?
Okay, well, ISD 728 is a Seesaw district, which means that we work through Seesaw, and Seesaw does a lot of our management for us. So in our case, what they have done is they've created classrooms for each homeroom classroom, and we have kindergarten through second grade that is using Seesaw. And what the teachers do as a homeroom teacher, they share it with the specialist. So art, music, Fayed, media, we're all on the same Seesaw, which is really nice because not only do I get to see what I'm doing for assessment, but I also get to see what Fayed is posting and what the homeroom teacher is posting and what they're working on currently. So it helps for collaboration between teachers as well. Now, from what I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this next year, what will happen is the students will be divvied up into their new classes and their Seesaw will follow them. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So basically with Seesaw for Schools, that portfolio travels with the student. So the content will still travel with them. They'll kind of start a fresh, portfolio for the next year, but they'll have access, teachers will have access to that content as well from the previous year as well. So, and as Nick was kind of describing, she has it set up that the specialists are co-teachers from the homeroom teacher's classroom. So a little bit different with Mary when she's using Free Seesaw. She has created her own classes and added her own students. So that's just kind of one difference here with the panelists. So we have some questions coming in here. Let's see. So Heather is wondering, have you had any students not want to post or their parents don't want them to post?
This is Nick, and I'll start out with that one. I have not, because what we do is we really, really explain that this is very private between the teachers and the parents. So we've tried to educate our parents on what Seesaw is about. The other rule, just kind of a general rule that we have, if we wouldn't hang it in the hallway, we don't necessarily post it to all. So I explained that sometimes I'll take a picture of the whole class working. If I feel like I wouldn't take that picture and put it in the hallway, that's something that I would not post to everyone. So those are kind of the rules, the rule of thumbs that we work on. But actually, I find just the opposite. I find Seesaw to be a high motivator. Students want to record themselves and want to take pictures. What do you think, Mary?
I agree totally. I have not had a student not want to take pictures or be included or parents. So with us having the free version at my school, I'm the one who created all the classes for the whole building. And there's a couple teachers that are actually using it on a daily basis, classroom teachers. And our specialists, that's the PE and the music and STEM classes, they also use it, but since we're only allowed to have two teachers on the free version, I give, which I probably shouldn't, but they use my login. So when music or STEM or PE want to add something to our digital portfolios, they're just logged in as me as the teacher. I just hope they don't get me in trouble with that. But so far it's been great.
Okay, so Desiree has a question for you, Mary. She wants to know, how did you make how do you use, what did you use to make the viewfinder? It looks like maybe just you're laminating paper, right?
Oh yeah. So I just printed something out of Word, and I cut a square out with an X-Acto knife, and then I laminated it, and I just that way it was just like a clear, like little window. And then on the back, I poked little tiny holes with a tack, and I used fishing line, which you can't see in the picture. And I attached the fishing line to the back of the top of the poster and the bottom, and then it just slides literally up and down.
Clever.
Love
Thanks.
it. So here's a question while other people are typing in questions because my question box is empty. So if you're here live and you have questions, go ahead and type them in. But I have a question. So Nick, let's start with you. If there are, art teachers listening and they're thinking, "Oh my goodness, I'm brand new to Seesaw. How do I even get started?" How would you suggest they get started in their classroom? What are kind of your top 2 or 3 tips that you would give them?
Those quick pictures are the best, easiest, quickest way to get started. It's not scary that way. So you're signed in as a teacher and you don't have to do any approval when you are signed in as a teacher. So just taking those pictures, sometimes I'll do recordings. So if we play line ninjas, that's when I call out a line and they have to make the karate chop to match that line, so vertical, and they say hi-ya, and their arms are vertical. Um, I'll have them play that game once we've practiced it a couple of times and I'll record it. Um, that's a good, simple way. You hit everybody and all of your class gets that information. And what's nice is even if a student is gone for the day, the parents still have knowledge of what happened, what was missed, what content was covered in that day. So just taking those quick pictures or those videos is the best way to get started.
Awesome. And Mary, do you have anything to add to that?
I do. I would say if you're just beginning and you're a little nervous, like Nick was saying, they have a company, the Seesaw kind of manages it for them. I'm our manager for the whole school, so I have to, like, all the approvals come through me. Um, but one thing, if you're starting off, maybe start with one grade level and instead of trying to attack the whole school at once. Another thing I do is with that Seesaw docking station you saw, I'll plug it into my projector. So if I don't have a project on the projector that I need everybody to see, I'll plug in the projector. So if I'm in the room helping students and they're like, I'm not sure what to push next, I can just see it from wherever I'm at. I'm like, oh, you need to make sure you check this or put this on there. I also do that to demonstrate it. So when I'm first introducing it to the students, I'll plug it in on the board and I'll say, okay, everybody look, we're going to push the little green plus sign right here, and whatnot. That kind of helps me to project it up.
Love it. And we have a question coming in from Emily. She's saying she's got one iPad. Is there a good way to make use of it more efficiently? So I think Nick's suggestion is good, of the taking the pictures. But what else would you guys suggest if they just have one iPad?
I think you're right. Nick had a great. I mean, I love how she uses that. I do that occasionally. Just sort of scan the whole classroom through your teacher, and then just tag them. Because sometimes the docking station does get backed up since I only have one. If everybody kind of finishes at the same time, we have like a line. Um,
I think another tip too is I think a station is a good idea too, but if there's a specific project you're hoping for the students to capture, I think, you can even have some start on one particular day and maybe they carry on to the next day. I know it gets tricky when you're only seeing them maybe once a week. But even just maybe they don't all have to have the same project in there. So maybe you also, trade off students in terms of if you have one iPad, making sure each student gets a chance, every as often as they can. Pamela has a question. How questions regarding enticing parents to sign up. So she's the only teacher at her school using Seesaw right now, and she's got about 10 out of 150 parents signed up. So what tips can you give for getting more families connected?
That's sad. I'm sorry to hear that. That was not a situation that I had to deal with because of our whole district adopting this. So I'd say 95% of my parents are um, involved with Seesaw. Mary, do you have that situation?
At first I did. It's getting better through word of mouth. But so the very first way I send it out is through the classroom teacher, an email for them to do the link. I give it a couple of weeks and I look and see which parents have not connected. And I'll go through and print the QR code for those people. And I'll say to the child, like the students, I'll say, now these people, your parents aren't following. And if they really want to follow, here's the code. Also, with it being projected on the board and the parents immediately get notification, like today we were taking the pictures of the giraffe, I can say, oh, look, Johnny, your mom just made a comment. How cool is that? And the kids are a little jealous. Like, did my mom say anything? And I'm like, well, your mom's not following it yet. Do you want me to print you a QR code? Is that
Yeah,
bad?
I think and I think when Nick was explaining too, when in my experience too, once some families are connected, they're also very excited, and I think word of mouth also is your best advocate as well. Elizabeth, I'm going to answer your question. She wants to know, can you explain how the portfolio travels with the students? Can each teacher add to the student portfolio? So if you are using Seesaw for Schools, like Nick is, that portfolio is tied to a specific student ID number. So say the student is in first grade this year, when they go to second grade and are divvied up into different second grade classrooms, that portfolio, because it has that student ID number, travels with that student. They would start a new, a fresh one for first grade, but their content from the previous year would still be there and accessible. So then the next year's teacher starts fresh, but has access to all of that content prior as well. Any additional questions? We are out of time here, but I feel like we're just having so much fun. Um, let's see. Desiree wants to know, if you are using the free version of Seesaw, can students still access old classwork? So Desiree, that really, in reality, if you're using free Seesaw, you do start a fresh class each year. So anytime that you're using free Seesaw, the families can also download into a zip file all of the content they've added to Seesaw, so it doesn't disappear. It's still there for the families. So keep that in mind. Heather's asking, she's saying, my students are posting work in progress. We are going to make them into an iMovie, attach a QR code to it, and display it on their final piece. Ooh, I love that.
Oh,
Mm,
yeah.
nice.
Love that idea. So thanks everyone for coming. Nick, if you want to go to the next slide, the next slide is really just showing you just different ways to get involved in our teacher community, which is an amazing community. So of course you can join us for more PD and your PJs. If you go to that website there, I mean, endless webinars that are there for you right now if you want to keep learning more. Follow us on Twitter. You can join Seesaw Teachers on Facebook. You can tweet to me, or of course Nick or Mary as well. Would be happy to have ongoing conversation and collaboration with you specific to using Seesaw in your art classroom. So Nick and Mary, thanks so much for coming today.
Oh,
Thank
thanks for having
you.
me. Yep.
I enjoyed it.